what you're looking at down here, uh, minus the snow that just fell yesterday, all of these little volunteer shoots coming out of the ground um, are choke cherry, uh, not including this bush, and I'm ashamed to say I don't even know what that is. Uh, I'm going to take you around here right quick and kind of show you this stump right here. Cut down the main tree last summer. It had some wind damage, but you can see as a result all of this volunteer growth that has come, and I'll kind of take a look at this one in particular, and as we back up, that particular shoot stands probably, I would say that's 5 feet long, and that is one year of growth. So that was growth entirely last spring. And what has happened is, when you cut down any main portion of a tree, or you cut the vertical growth, you encourage horizontal growth and vice versa. Well, by taking down that stump, I have pushed all of these volunteers to come through. So here's a group of shafts that I harvested this past fall. You can see that kind of moving from right to left, I have just some untended long length shoots that were cut and left to dry as is. The ones in the middle are a little on the thin side. The blue stickers on the back, or the blue tape back here, is where I recorded their spine. So I have let these dry now. Cut them last fall. It is now almost February, so they've been drying inside the house for a couple months. I did not take the bark off, because truthfully, and I got exactly what I wanted. If you look at this very closest shaft, that's sanded with just taking it down to a smooth shaft. And you talk about carrying a camouflage shaft for hunting or whatever in the field. That is better than any paint process, staining process, or anything else that you can put on there. Alright, so let's talk about what gets you from shoots that look like this, right, to shafts that look more like this. Alright, so as these shoots are drying, and I take them inside and I just dry them down in my den, and as mentioned before, when I first cut them down, we'll take them green, get them all bundled together, and usually throw in a good couple of dowels that are nice and straight to kind of encourage them to be straight, and bind them up with either an inner tube, bicycle inner tube, or rubber bands, or whatever you've got at your disposal. I prefer something stretchy, right? Because a rope is, if you're doing it with, say, string or rope, it's not tight. It doesn't really hold things together well. And as wood dries, it does shrink, and you want it to be able to continue to compress that wood and keep it on the straight and narrow, so to speak. Once we have gotten past that initial drying stage, I would say maybe a week, 2 weeks, I pull them out individually and I just put them inside to dry. And then every couple of days there at the beginning, maybe a couple times a week, I'll pull them out and one by one go through all the shafts and straighten them. Because while they're drying, they will be real compliant to bending. So there's no heat treatment necessary. You just work the areas that are a problem, and you will find that over the course of a month, 6 weeks, these guys are, for lack of a better way of saying it, straight as an arrow. And then comes the shaft preparation. Now this is kind of a personal preference thing. I did not take all of the bark off of this particular arrow, and my intention is to not take it off of any of them. what I'm going for is kind of a camouflaged appearance. So if you're hunting in the field with something like this, it is definitely obscured from view of any animals or yourself for that matter. If you shoot this errantly and lose it in the woods, you're definitely going to struggle to find it. But in my mind, this is a really great camo look, and that's no treatment whatsoever. You can, if you choose, go all the way bare shaft, and you can get them all the way smooth. You do it however is whatever your preference is for those. Now, for the sanding piece, I use this particular jig. It's one that I just put together on my own. 2 pieces of MDF, 3/4 inch. Got a basic hinge on there. Put a spacer in there to kind of keep about a 1/8 gap, and drilled through with a 1/2 inch drill bit and then a 3/8 inch drill bit. And this way I can have my sandpaper set in here, and we can sand the shaft of those arrows in this jig. What's tricky about this, guys, is when it's drying, it tends to dry in an elliptical shape. So tactily you can feel that it's not perfectly round. It'll actually have an elliptical shape, and that can affect your spine. So if you're running across the deeper piece of the shaft, it's going to be stiffer than if you get it along what would be more of a flatter side. And so you want to make sure that when you spine these out, you've got them spined on the stiffest side, okay, and that your cock feather is lined up properly so that you got the right spine coming out of your bow. The other beauty part of it, and it's a lot like a cane shaft or a bamboo shaft, the tail end of this arrow is far thinner than the top. So we're dealing with a tapered shaft, beautifully tapered shaft. So your spine at the tail is going to be much more limber than your spine at the front, and you're going to have a weight forward scenario here. And so these arrows bending around the grip of your bow, you don't have a problem. You could probably be a little overspined shooting these out of your bow. And they're going to be a lot more forgiving to spine. Just to kind of give you a feel for how the sanding process works here, I'll knock down like the little, they're really not knots, it's where the leaves were growing off the side of your chute, which become little dimples on your shaft, more like pimples as opposed to dimples. And then just sand this, and you want to do the back and forth sanding, guys, because if you spin it in here, you can cause some weightiness to go into place. And as the shaft starts, as you start working down to thinner portions of the shaft, you can move over to that 3/8 piece, or the 3/8 cutout here, and you can see how this starts to lighten up, and you can sand it as aggressively, as deeply. You sand it till you get the patina or the look that you want on that shaft. And so here again, I'm starting to get just some of those little islands of the leaves that were coming out, showing through, and this will start to also just really smooth out. And if you were to feel this right now, it's already really smooth. This particular shaft right here, if you didn't see it, you wouldn't believe that you're feeling it. It's as smooth as glass across the whole way. It is perfectly smooth, and straight. And so this is really just the shafting phase. So we're going to get these all sanded down and ready to go. I'll probably take you through the construction of one, but the process remains the same for the remainder. Okay, so here are sort of the different stages of removal on that bark. So these guys, dried, straightened, ready to go. Lightly sanded, so this would be the one that I sanded just a minute ago. And then this is really kind of the look I'm personally going for. and just I don't think we're going to be able to there. Oh, trying to get the there. There we go. That is just really, really, I don't think I can get the light to reflect off of it, but even though it looks like there's some bark showing through here, this is just smooth. It is very smooth, like glass. So that's really what I'm trying to get for my group, and then of course a sanded Foley right here. So I'm realizing that it didn't look too clear when I was shooting or talking there from a distance. So here's kind of a close-up of what we got going right there. All right. Okay, guys, we're going to move on to the next piece of the puzzle. We're going to put in a self-knock. So here's the original shaft I was working on, and I have put in a self-knock, and I'll show you how we do this. Got a second shaft put together here. It's all sanded, cut to length. I've got them 30 inches long. I have put a mark in here at the half-inch mark. All right, so that's a half-inch from the end, and this is the narrowest side of the shaft. So up here is our larger diameter, tapering down to our smallest diameter right here. Okay, we're going to put a 7/16 inch hole right behind this line here, and remember, if your arrow is elliptical in profile, I guess, like elliptical this way, which this one is actually pretty much round, and so we will deal with just the we don't have to worry about how we go about putting in orienting the drill hole. But in this instance, this shaft was a little bit on the elliptical side, so we kind of put it on the flatter edge down and drilled straight down into what would be the widest part, so that we've got the strongest orientation against the bow. So here we go. I'm going to go put a hole in on the drill press. Let's see here. Okay, so here's how this goes. Once it's split, or once it's the drill hole's there, I'm going to split it with our knife, and basically what happens here is once you've gotten in there and split it on both sides, this piece will just pop right on out of there, just like that. All right, so then we'll take and clean this up, just to kind of show you the before and afters here. All right, so you can see what we do as far as getting in there to clean that up. And generally speaking, the way I do that is just with a folded up piece of sandpaper. And you know, I mean, it's a little on the tedious side, guys, but you know, time investment is the quality of the work that we get done. Okay, so now that it's all sanded smooth, and you can kind of see where it's almost got like a built-in kind of snap ability. We're going to check it against a string, and you can just see how it seats. It seats up against the shaft right there, and it'll pop back off. So much so that, you know, it'll hang. I'm not holding on to this at this point, so it'll hang on the string and come right off. Alright, so there you go. You know, shape it any way you want. I like to taper both the outside edges here, including the inside. So you should have a nice wide entry at the back to accommodate getting over the string to start with, and should snap into place. Here are a couple of hints when it comes time to putting the knock on your shafts, the self knocks. One would be to just really tightly wrap the shaft with electrical tape. That'll kind of keep it, not kind of, but it'll keep it from splitting down the shaft beyond the point of the drilled hole. And then to help you reference the angle of your cut from the end, you can put a, let's see here if I can get this to, yeah, there we go. Put a toothpick in there so that you can reference how you should address the blade to the end. So a couple of helpful hints there. So I set up all of my shafts, and they're all tapered and ready for some 23/64 tips here. All of them. We'll get one. I'm using a pine pitch glue that I made over the summer, and if ever you're able to make yourself a batch of pine pitch glue, this stuff is really pretty phenomenal what it can do as far as its adhesion qualities. Doesn't take a whole heck of a lot, and truthfully what we're doing here is just trying to get it enough such that I've got some just stuck on there so that I can in turn put a point on there, and then we'll heat the tip, which will in turn heat the glue, and we'll just get the works all down in there. Get that real nice and hot. Twist it around, make sure we get the glue evenly spread inside there. And usually I'll just kind of squelch that in water to cool it down quick, but I don't have any water handy. I just run it into the bathroom and run it under the sink right quick, and there you go. Okay, so basically we are done with the arrow or shaft making process. You'll see that I've got arrowheads on each of the arrows here. They're all sanded, straightened, spined. The little blue painter's tape on the tops of all these are labeled with their spines. They're all in the 55 to 60 weight class. We've got them all self-nocks, and we'll go back and, like I said, we'll wrap just ahead of these nocks so that it protects the shaft of the arrow from splitting, since they are self-nock. And if ever, so if you're making your arrows and you have a problem with, let's say, busting an ear off of your self-nock, there's no reason or no cause for panic. You just go ahead and taper that down and put on a plastic knock. You know, I mean, you made the effort to do a self-knock. If it didn't work out, so be it. Put on plastic knocks. And so hopefully you're not afraid to try and do this. It seems like it could be a tricky process, but truthfully, it's a lot easier than it may look on camera. And just trying it a couple times really gets the, you know, you're able to do it. You know, if necessary, you could try just with some of your cutoffs and just practice making those knocks on there. I've got one more shaft here that I'm going to put a flint knapped head in. So this guy, this is going to be, these are the stumpers, and he'll be the hunter. So we'll have one hunting arrow in the bunch. Okay, so we'll talk about a couple different ways to secure your knock area here with different wraps. I'm going to show a linen thread, and then over here I have some little strips of sinew. The sinew is those are pretty short pieces, but what you'll find is that when they're reconstituted, they actually get pretty long. And so I've actually had a piece in my mouth. Best way actually to get these things reconstituted and naturally adhesive, I guess. I mean, it reactivates the collagens and whatnot. And the sinew is to actually activate it with saliva. And so I'm currently kind of chewing on some of it. Stuff tastes horrible for those that are interested in knowing. But the beautiful thing about sinew, and here's the strip right here, is that it will shrink as it dries. And so putting this on your bow, or your arrow rather, like this, is kind of a really, here we go, I'm just kind of running it back down across the whole wrap. Now you'll see it's almost translucent there, and as it dries it'll actually take on kind of an amber color, and once that's done we can kind of rub down the rough edges of it with a piece of antler or bone or even just your fingernail to smooth it down, and you'll find that all alone is just an amazing wrap that will it'll stand the test of time for a long time. So there's your sinew wrap on what's going to be my hunting arrow. We'll set that one aside. Well, it turns out that my phone stops recording when it starts ringing, so we're going to take the linen wrap piece and we're going to try and do this one again. So here we go. I'm going to just have a length of wrap over a tag end hanging out here, and we're just going to wrap over top of it. Probably start within, again, a half inch of the well of the knock here, and probably get a good couple, 3 or 4 wraps on there, and we'll pull that tag end up tight behind it, and as we nestle all those wraps down tight to one another, we can start to get a good wrap going. Now I'm hopefully you're able to see what's going on here. As we wrap, we're going to take that tag end and kind of move him out of the way now and wrap over top or above it, right? And when we get to the end of all the wraps, we'll tug on him, get him tight. We're going to set up another one on the back end to do the same thing. And so as we're kind of nearing our wrap destination to the well of the knock cutout, I'm going to pull a nice little tag end of thread out, and we're going to set down a new tag end going the opposite direction here, and it's just a big loop essentially is what you've got going on, but we're going to wrap then over top of that piece, and what will happen is when we get to the end of it here, we'll just be able to pull everything down tight by pulling on our 2 tag ends, and we get really nice and tight. Now this is similar to like wrapping a serving on a bowstring, or putting like a knock point on a bowstring, the way I do it. But what's nice about it is you don't have the string running all the way out to the knock in your way, and you are able to then just continue your wraps and just work around the end of your arrow here. So truly an uncomplicated process, and uncomplicated is always a good thing. All right, so we're basically wrapped up to the bottom of the knock here, and what we're going to do then is take this piece that we've wrapped over top of, and we're going to pull it all. Oh, I got the sinew sticking to me here. Pull it all down tight, right, like that. And then we can pull on this end to pull the bottom portion of all that tight. And work all of these wraps down snug to one another, so it's just one real tight wrap. And pull on those ends again. Ensure that we got everything as tight as we can get it. And that'll be another really good protection for that to hold that arrow together at the back end. And so now that it's done and it's wrapped like this, and kind of flatten down the wraps a little bit where we wrapped over the thread some. And best bet at this point is to go ahead and soak that thread with super glue, and then you got another really good permanent binding that's going to keep your arrow from splitting down the shaft upon the shot. Okay, we're going to go ahead and go through a fletching process right quick. You can see the sinew wrap on this one. Hopefully you can see how that turned out, since I told you I would show you once it was dry. We got this already configured with the for the cock feather, and I've laid out feathers here. When it comes to doing my fletching work, this is where my instant gratification thing comes along, and I do not like waiting on glue to dry. So ordinarily, or there are a couple different processes, but you could wrap your feathers on with linen, like we wrap the knock ends. You could glue, put a bead of glue on here and put it in place. I have for quite some time been using this fletching tape that Boning puts out, and it is just a real time saver, and I never would have believed that this stuff would hold hold a fletching on as well as it does, but it does a really good job. So off it comes. I always give it just a little bit of a rise on that there, so it's kind of make sure your arrow's in good and straight. Set that down. And it's just done. And it's always so nice to just be done. Here we go with the finished products. Got the stumper, the hunter, the remaining shafts there with all their field points on there just waiting to be fletched, and then just various states of completion with choke cherry shoots here. So all of this is the same material that you see on the workbench there. I have a Georgetown blue flint napped arrowhead on this guy right here, and that's an arrowhead that I napped, and I made a video of the process on this guy. So if you want to watch how that was done, there will be just kind of a click on box at the end of this video. You can watch that video if it interests you. But yeah, there's the hunter. And so now all we got to do is fletch the remaining 5 shafts, and we are done. I hope you enjoyed.